When she ignores you, she's not just testing your patience, she's testing your self-control. She wants to see if your emotions will expose you, if you'll panic, if you'll beg, if you'll chase. Because when a woman ignores you, she's not looking at your words. She's reading your energy. Every man has been there staring at that message marked seen, that silence that suddenly feels louder than any argument. You start overthinking. Did I say something wrong? Did she lose interest? Should I double text? And that's where most men lose the game. Not because she ignored them, but because they lost themselves trying to be noticed again. But here's the truth that most men never learn. When she ignores you, she's handing you a mirror. That silence isn't punishment, it's information. It tells you how much power you've been giving away. It reveals whether you were leading the connection or begging for attention. You see, attention is currency in relationships. And when you start spending it too freely, its value drops. She knows that. So when she ignores you, she's subconsciously watching to see how you'll react, if you'll keep offering your energy for free, or if you'll finally make her earn it. The Stoic man doesn't beg to be seen. He becomes unforgettable by being calm, scarce, and centered. He doesn't respond to silence with desperation. He responds with discipline. Because here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing her validation, you create tension. And that tension, that mystery is what reignites attraction. When you learn to stay silent instead of emotional, distant instead of desperate, patient instead of panicked, she feels it. It's not revenge, it's reflection. You're teaching her that ignoring you has a cost. The cost of losing access to a man who values his energy too much to beg for attention. In this video, you'll learn exactly how to turn silence into power, how to make her regret taking you for granted, and how to let her feel the absence she thought she could handle. Because when you stop chasing, the balance of power shifts, and that's when she starts to wonder, not why you disappeared, but how she became so easy to forget. Before we start the video, I want to remind you that my effective online course on mastering the dating game is available now. If you've been learning from my YouTube videos, you're only scratching the surface. This course takes things to an entirely new level, teaching you everything you need to know about the dating game, from approaching a woman to building real attraction. And you won't find this information in any video on my channel. It's available in both English and Spanish language, so you can learn in the language you feel most comfortable with. It's easy to access with a secure payment option. Visit thestoiccouple.podia.com or click the link in the description to enroll now and improve your dating life. Let's dive in. Number 1, the psychology behind her silence. When the psychology behind her silence woman ignores you, it's rarely about the message you sent. It's about the message she wants to send without words. You see, silence is one of a woman's most powerful tools. It's not just absence, it's communication. When she ignores you, she's not doing nothing. She's saying something very clearly. I want to see what kind of man you are when I take my attention away. That's the real test. Not of attraction, but of power. Because here's what most men don't realize. Ignoring isn't rejection, it's measurement. She's measuring your discipline, your patience, your self-worth. She's watching whether you stay calm or collapse under uncertainty. Because a woman doesn't want to be with a man who needs reassurance every time things go quiet. She wants a man who stays grounded in stillness. Women use silence to test your emotional maturity. If you overreact, double text, panic. Ask if she's mad. She instantly feels the shift in energy. She sees that you were never leading the connection. She was. But if you stay silent, not out of pride, but out of composure, you flip the dynamic. Because now, she starts to feel uncertainty. She starts to wonder if her silence went unnoticed or if it actually cost her your attention, and that's where the psychology kicks in. When she realizes you're not chasing, her brain enters a phase called cognitive dissonance. It's that mental tug-off war between her ego and her emotion. Her ego says he should be trying harder, but her emotions whisper, "Why isn't he?" That confusion creates curiosity, and curiosity is the seed of attraction. She begins checking your stories, rereading old messages, trying to decode your silence. The power has shifted, not because you played games, but because you finally stopped playing hers. The truth is, ignoring you is never about indifference. It's about control. She's seeing whether she can still influence your mood, your day, your focus. If your energy drops, she wins. If you stay composed, she starts to question herself. The Stoic man understands this dance. He doesn't take it personally, he doesn't argue, explain, or chase. He simply steps back and lets silence do the talking for him. Because silence, when handled with confidence, always says the same thing. You can't control a man who's mastered himself. And that realization for her is both unsettling and unforgettable because once she sees that her silence no longer shakes you, she starts to feel something she didn't expect, respect, and that's when the game begins to change. Number 2, why chasing her kills attraction. Why chasing her kills attraction. When a woman starts to pull away, every instinct in a man screams at him to do something. You feel the urge to call, to text, to explain, to remind her of what you had. You tell yourself it's an act of love, but deep down it's fear. The fear of losing her attention, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of not being enough. That fear is powerful. It makes even strong men behave like strangers to their own dignity. And that's exactly why chasing her kills attraction. Because in that moment, she no longer sees the man she was drawn to. She sees a man trying to convince her of his worth. Attraction doesn't live in pursuit. It lives in presence. A woman doesn't fall for the man who needs her validation. She falls for the man who carries himself as though he's already whole, even without her. When you chase, you shift the balance of power. You turn your energy outward, trying to make her see your value. When real value never explains itself, it's felt. The more you chase, the more predictable you become. And predictability kills mystery. Mystery is what ignites the female imagination. It's what makes her wonder, analyze, and desire. But when you show her that her attention defines your happiness, she loses curiosity. She stops seeing you as the calm, grounded man who first caught her eye and starts seeing someone emotionally dependent on her reactions. And dependence, no matter how romantic it feels in your mind, never builds respect. You have to understand that chasing a woman who's pulling away doesn't bring her back. It confirms that you'll never let her leave. And once she knows that, she loses something far more important than interest. She loses admiration, because women don't fall for words or gestures. They fall for energy. They're drawn to the man who doesn't need to prove, explain, or perform to be seen. The one who, when faced with silence, doesn't crumble. He pauses, he observes, he redirects his focus toward his purpose. And that pause does more damage to her ego than any argument ever could. When she pulls away and you stay calm, she starts to feel something unexpected. Distance. Not physical distance, but energetic distance. It's the kind that makes her feel the absence of your attention, your effort, your warmth. At first, she might act like she doesn't care, but that's the surface reaction of someone who's trying to convince herself of a lie. Deep down, she feels the difference. And that difference starts to grow inside her. It turns from pride into confusion, from confusion into curiosity, and from curiosity into longing. That's the natural consequence of silence from a man who once gave everything. The Stoic man doesn't chase because he understands that chasing never restores respect. It only deepens the imbalance. You can't convince someone to value what they've already decided to take for granted, but you can remind them through your stillness that their absence doesn't break you. It frees you, and that realization always hits harder than any message you could send. The moment you stop chasing, she starts to see you. Again, not because you tried harder, but because you finally became scarce. And scarcity to the feminine mind is irresistible. Number 3, the power of silence and emotional control. The power of silence and emotional control. Silence is not empty. It's full of information. It tells her everything she needs to know about your strength, your discipline, and your emotional depth. When a woman ignores you, what she's truly observing is not your reaction to her silence, but your relationship with your own emotions. Most men crumble under that pressure. They send that second message. They try to spark conversation. They fill the void with nervous words because silence makes them uncomfortable. But that discomfort is exactly where your power lives. When you can remain calm, unbothered, and fully grounded while being ignored, you're sending the loudest message possible. My peace is not negotiable. That kind of emotional control doesn't just confuse her, it intrigues her. Because most men chase, most men react, most men let their emotions dictate their behavior. The rare man who stays still, who refuses to hand his power to her silence, becomes unforgettable. Women are intuitive. They can sense your emotional energy without a single word. When you stay silent, she can feel that stillness. It unsettles her because she expected you to react. She expected you to prove your care through desperation, to show your love through panic. When you don't, it flips the entire dynamic. You've suddenly become unpredictable, and unpredictability breeds curiosity. That curiosity starts as a whisper in her mind. Why isn't he reaching out? Has he moved on? Did I lose him? That whisper turns into thoughts. Those thoughts turn into questions, and those questions begin to pull her toward you. She may not reach out immediately, but she starts to feel something. She can't quite define a quiet longing for the attention she once took for granted. Emotional control is the foundation of masculine power. It's what separates a man who reacts from a man who leads. When you stay composed during chaos, you shift from being emotionally dependent to emotionally dominant. She can no longer read you like an open book. She can't predict your next move. And that uncertainty, that mystery, reignites her attraction because it reawakens the emotional tension that existed when she first desired you. You become the storm she can't control, the energy she can't define. And that's the energy women chase. They don't fall for men who always explain themselves. They fall for men whose silence makes them think. But here's the deeper truth. Silence is not about manipulation. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about refusing to give emotional power to someone who disrespected your attention. It's choosing not to react, not because you don't care, but because you've learned that reacting never changes anything. It only reveals your weakness. The Stoic man knows that silence has gravity. It draws people in. It makes your presence felt even when you're gone. Every time you resist the urge to respond, you build a quiet kind of strength that no one can take from you. And over time, that strength becomes your identity. Calm, centered, unshakable. In that stillness, you stop trying to teach her your worth with words because your silence is doing it better than you ever could. And when she finally realizes that you're no longer waiting for her, that you've made peace with her distance, that's when she feels the weight of her decision. Not because you punished her, but because you mastered yourself. Number 4, making her feel the loss. Making her feel the loss. Without saying a word, without saying a word. When you finally stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop trying to fix what she broke, something begins to shift. Not outside you, but within her. At first, she'll pretend she doesn't notice. She'll scroll through her phone, half expecting your name to light up her screen like it always did. She'll tell herself she's free, that the silence feels peaceful, that she doesn't care. But deep down, there's a part of her that starts to sense something missing. Not you at first, but the feeling of being desired. That warmth she used to feel, knowing you were always there, waiting, responding, investing your energy into her world. When that disappears, it leaves a void. And that void is what begins to make her feel your absence. You don't need to post cryptic stories or act mysterious online. You don't need to show her that you've moved on. Because real power doesn't announce itself, it's felt. You make her feel your absence by no longer feeding her ego. When you stop validating her through your effort, her mind starts to replay moments where she felt seen, admired, and wanted. The contrast between your previous attention and your current stillness becomes the emotional mirror she can't escape. That's when she begins to feel regret. Not because you vanished, but because she realizes what she's lost was never just your attention. It was your energy. Every time she opens her phone and doesn't see your message. Every time she posts something and you don't react. Every time she tries to pull your attention subtly and you remain silent, the imbalance begins to flip. You're no longer the one waiting for her. Now she's the one wondering what you're thinking, where you went, and why she suddenly feels replaceable. It's not punishment, it's reflection. You've given her back the silence she handed you, but you've done it with calm, not bitterness. That difference is everything, because silence born from peace has gravity. It pulls her inward, making her overthink, while silence born from anger only pushes people away. The moment she feels your detachment, she begins to compare the energy of before and after. Before you were emotionally available, soft, attentive. Now you're silent, steady, focused elsewhere. That contrast burns slowly in her mind. She might try to convince herself that she's fine, but her subconscious tells another story, because what the mind can ignore, the body still feels. The absence of your attention starts to echo like a sound she didn't notice until it stopped. It's not your voice she misses. It's the way your energy used to make her feel valuable. The Stoic man doesn't try to make her jealous. He doesn't try to manipulate her emotions. He simply lets time and absence speak for him. Because when you master stillness, the woman who once ignored you begins to chase her own memories of you. That's the real power. When your presence is missed without any effort on your part, it's not revenge, it's restoration. She's not regretting what she did, she's regretting who she lost. A man who never begged to be loved, but who knew his silence would one day remind her what peace felt like. And when that realization finally hits, when she feels that her actions cost her access to something rare, your calm, your consistency, your care, she'll understand what words could never teach her. Ignoring you was never the win she thought it was. It was the beginning of her own emptiness. Number 5, turning detachment into power. Detachment isn't about walking away cold, it's about walking away clear. It's the quiet decision that your peace costs too much to sell for temporary attention. Most men misunderstand detachment. They think it means shutting off emotions or pretending not to care, but real. Detachment is the opposite. It's feeling everything and still choosing discipline over desperation. It's knowing you want her but refusing to chase her. It's seeing her pull away and resisting the urge to prove your worth. It's that moment where you stop reacting to her silence and start responding to your own standards. Because detachment at its core is about shifting the focus from her to yourself. It's no longer about what she thinks of you. It's about what you think of you. And that's the moment everything changes. When you detach, you stop living in emotional debt. You stop making withdrawals from your self-respect to buy temporary comfort. You start investing in your purpose, your routine, your peace. You don't ghost her to hurt her. You just go quiet to heal yourself. You redirect the energy you once spent trying to fix her silence into building your presence, your strength, your calm. You go to the gym not to prove you've moved on, but because every rep reminds you of your control. You work in silence. You move in patience. You speak less, not out of anger, but out of alignment. You're no longer playing the role of a man waiting for her to return. You're playing the role of a man returning to himself. That's the difference between reaction and power. Reaction is emotion trying to escape. Power is emotion contained. When you master detachment, you stop chasing closure. You don't need her to explain why she pulled away. You already understand that people's actions reflect their capacity, not your value. Her silence becomes her answer, and your response, your silence becomes your boundary. That's masculine equilibrium. The ability to remain calm in chaos, not because you feel nothing, but because you've learned to manage everything. And here's what most men never realize. Detachment amplifies attraction. When a woman feels that you're no longer emotionally dependent on her validation, her curiosity reawakens. She starts to feel the void of your energy, not as rejection, but as respect. You're no longer an option waiting for her attention. You've become a standard. That shift is magnetic, because women aren't drawn to perfection. They're drawn to presence. The man who moves slowly, speaks less, and radiates calm sends a message that words can't deliver. I am in control of myself, and that's why no one else can control me. The Stoic man uses detachment as a mirror, not a weapon. He doesn't use silence to manipulate. He uses it to reflect strength. He doesn't run from emotion. He rises above it. That's what makes him powerful. Not his ability to hide his feelings, but his ability to channel them. Detachment gives you back everything chasing took from you. Your mystery, your confidence, your peace. And when she finally sees that she no longer has access to your emotions, only the memory of them, that's when she begins to feel powerless. Because the truth is simple. When you stop chasing her, she starts chasing herself. And in that moment, the balance of power shifts permanently in your favor. Not because you controlled her, but because you finally controlled yourself. Number 6, the art of rebuilding. The art of rebuilding, respect. Respect is not rebuilt through explanations. It's rebuilt through evolution. A woman doesn't start respecting you again because you told her to. She respects you when she feels something new in your energy, something she can't control, something she once took for granted but now recognizes as rare. And that recognition doesn't come when you chase her. It comes when you disappear. Not to punish, but to evolve. That's the essence of rebuilding respect. Transformation in silence. You don't announce it. You embody it. You don't tell her you've changed. You become the kind of man who no longer needs her validation to feel valuable. When you go quiet and focus on yourself, something powerful happens. You start to see things with new eyes. You realize how much energy you gave away trying to keep someone interested instead of keeping yourself aligned. You see how often you explained your worth to people who never earned that explanation. You understand that your peace was always your responsibility, not her reward. That awareness changes the way you move. You stop reacting to emotion and start responding to reality. You don't overextend, you don't over-explain, you simply exist in control. And that energy speaks louder than anything you could ever post or say. Women feel energy before they see. Results. When your tone changes, calm, patient, grounded, she feels it when you stop chasing her validation and start chasing your mission. She feels it when you stop reacting to her silence and start investing in your presence. She feels that shift, and that's what begins to rebuild respect, because the moment she realizes that her opinion no longer defines your direction, she begins to look at you differently, not as someone trying to win her back, but as someone who doesn't need to. That's where respect begins. Not when you convince her to see your worth, but when you become too focused to notice her doubt. Rebuilding respect is not about changing for her. It's about returning to yourself. The man she admired in the beginning was not desperate. He was detached, mysterious, focused. He didn't chase, he attracted. And that energy is what drew her in. Your calm certainty, your silence that demanded attention, your balance between care and control. Somewhere along the way, you traded that energy for approval, and that's when she lost respect. But when she sees you've reclaimed it, when she feels your stillness again, something shifts inside her. Her pride fights it, but her intuition can't deny it. She remembers why she was drawn to you in the first place. Not because you were perfect, but because you were peaceful. The Stoic man never begs for respect. He commands it through alignment. His actions are quiet but deliberate. He speaks less because his results speak for him. He doesn't need to prove that he's moved on. His peace proves it. That's the art of rebuilding respect, not through effort, but through evolution. Because nothing earns admiration faster than a man who disappeared into discipline and came back unrecognizable. And when she sees that version of you, calm, confident, untouchable, she doesn't just regret losing you, she respects you again. Number 7, the moment she regrets ignoring you. Moment she regrets ignoring you. There always comes a moment, a quiet, unexpected one, when she realizes what she's done. It doesn't happen while she's busy pretending she doesn't care or posting pictures meant to make you jealous. It happens later, when the noise fades, when her pride stops talking and her thoughts finally catch up. That's when it hits her. Not the loss of a man she ignored, but the loss of the peace she once felt in your presence. You see, regret doesn't strike when you're chasing her. It strikes when you stop because your silence becomes a mirror showing her everything she didn't appreciate until it was gone. At first, she won't admit it. She'll rationalize her behavior. She'll tell herself that you were too serious, too calm, too distant. But deep down, she knows the truth. She ignored the one man who didn't just want her attention. He deserved it. Every woman remembers the man who didn't beg, the man who didn't fall apart, the man who made her feel safe without trying to impress her. When she realizes you were that man and she let ego replace gratitude, regret becomes inevitable. And the irony? It's not your messages she misses. It's your energy, the way you listened, the way you stayed patient, the way you made her feel seen without needing to prove anything. That kind of presence can't be replaced, and once it's gone, everything else feels hollow. She'll check your page again. She'll notice your calm. The tone of your silence will sound different. Not bitter, not angry, but peaceful. And that peace will sting her more than any argument ever could because it tells her you've accepted what she couldn't control. And that acceptance is power. She expected you to react, to fight, to chase, but you didn't. You walked away like a man who knows that distance doesn't mean defeat. It means dignity. And that calmness makes her question herself in ways your words never could. It's not that she suddenly falls back in love. It's that she finally sees the contrast. She compares your quiet strength to the noise of other men, the ones who chase her, flatter her, compete for her time. And she realizes how rare your stillness was. You stood out not because you were perfect, but because you were patient. And patience in a world obsessed with attention is a form of mystery she can't forget. That's when the regret begins to transform into reflection. And reflection becomes longing, not always for another chance, but for the feeling you gave her, the stability she once ignored and now craves. The Stoic man never tries to make her regret. He just lives in a way that reminds her of what peace feels like. And she'll remember that peace every time she meets chaos disguised as excitement. That's the true price of ignoring a man who's mastered himself. Not that he leaves, but that his silence follows her everywhere, quietly reminding her what she lost when she took him for granted. And that realization, the one she'll never admit out loud, is the deepest form of regret there is. At the end of conclusion it all, the lesson isn't about her, it's about you. It's not about what she said, what she did, or why she pulled away. It's about what that silence forced you to face within yourself. Every man at some point will meet a woman who awakens his deepest insecurities, who teaches him through pain what self-control truly means. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can chase her and lose yourself, or you can lose her and finally find yourself. The Stoic man always chooses the latter because he understands that the purpose of rejection isn't humiliation. It's refinement. It burns away everything false, everything weak, everything impulsive until only discipline remains. When she ignored you, it wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your transformation. You learned to sit in silence without losing your sanity. You learned that a text left unanswered doesn't define your worth. You learned that love, no matter how passionate, should never make you beg. Most men never reach that point. They spend their lives trying to fix, chase, and prove. But the man who's walked through emotional fire and stayed calm, that man becomes untouchable because he's learned that his peace is his power, and peace once earned becomes priceless. The Stoic man's final lesson is simple. Never trade your self-respect for connection. Never let the desire to be seen make you forget your own value. Love deeply, yes, but never at the expense of your identity. Give your presence, not your dependence. Let your energy be felt, not wasted. When a woman pulls away, you don't fight for her attention. You let her experience your absence. Because the absence of a disciplined man carries more weight than the attention of 100 desperate ones. Your silence becomes your signature. It tells the world you're a man who chooses clarity over chaos, composure over impulse, and purpose over validation. And here's the beauty of it all. Once you master that lesson, you stop fearing loss entirely. You no longer beg to stay in anyone's life. You understand that people are either aligned with your peace or distractions from it. You stop seeking closure because you are the closure. You stop demanding loyalty because you attract it naturally through your consistency. You stop begging for love because you've realized you are already enough with or without it. That's real power. Not arrogance, not coldness, but inner balance. The kind that can't be shaken by silence, distance, or rejection. So when she ignores you again, and someday someone will, don't flinch, don't chase, don't explain. Just remember what you've become. A man who no longer needs to be heard to make an impact. A man whose silence now speaks louder than his words ever could. That's the man she'll never forget. Not because he stayed, but because he left with dignity. Because in the end, her silence tested your emotions, but your silence revealed your evolution. And that is the price of ignoring a Stoic man. If you're ready to take your dating life to the next level, my full online course is waiting for you. It's packed with powerful strategies you won't find on YouTube, and it's available in English and Spanish. Click the link in the description and start mastering the game today. See you in the next